Hello everyone, it's Ashley here today to welcome you to another Make It Monday episode. I hope you have a bit of time as I demonstrate how to make felt flower embellishments from border dies. I'll also walk you through my card design process and share some tips and tricks on some decisions I make along the way. So, to get started, I have here some felt flowers. I've already created a bunch of them beforehand, and just to show you it's easy to make them from any border die pretty much. You can just test out the ones you have. My favorite ones to use are this small scallop border, the heart border die, and the eyelet border die. I also have some flowers here from the pinking sheer border die as well because I like that pinking sheared edge, that zigzag edge. So I'm going to go ahead here and pull out my cuddle bug, and I have here some felt strips just for demonstration purposes to show you. And I'm going to add my border dies. I'm just going to use 3 here just for demonstration purposes, but like I said, you can try your border dies to figure out which shape you like the best. So I trimmed my felt as it is on the roll, just rolled it out and trimmed about, looks like what, a couple inches or so. And you can trim a little bit less or a little bit more depending on, what you want to cut. But I'm going to show you how you can use the extra parts too to make more rolled flowers. So I run it through my machine about 4 times, and that's because of the fabric of the felt. And this one went through great. That's a scrap, so I'm going to put that in the scrap pile. That part is also a scrap, and this is the actual border, so I'll put that on another pile. And here is my scallop, and whoops, it did not cut. And that's probably due to my cutting plate. You can see there is a little bit worn, I should say. And also placement onto the machine. So what I'm going to do is to show you how I overcome this. Before I cut another piece of felt, I'm going to try to line it up again. I'm going to line up those scallops and fill it, because it did cut a little bit, just didn't cut all the way through. So I'm just going to fill it and peek through there. I'm peeking, and I'm just going to make sure it's lined up again, because if you don't make sure it's lined up again, it's going to cut a different section, and it might mess up your scallop border. So I'm going to run it through again about 4 times and see if that works. Okay, looks like it did a little bit. So I'm just going to pull it apart, and my die wasn't all the way at the end, so I'm just going to take some scissors and cut it off. And sometimes when you die cut felt, if you pull too much, you'll get some frayed edges. Now you should get clean cuts. Now on the other ones I got clean cuts. So it just depends on the die cutting machine, your sandwich, how tight it is when you run it through. So just clean it up with some scissors. Since this one is a little bit wide, I'm just going to trim some of it down. I'm just going to cut that little extra off. And I'm just going to go ahead now and start making the flower. So this is the small scallop border again, and this is scarlet jewel felt. And I'm just rolling it. You can roll it on either side. You can roll it towards you, or you can roll it away from you. That part doesn't really matter, and you don't have to use the entire strip that you cut. So I'm just going to show you here. I'm just going to use just this portion of it. I'm going to add some liquid adhesive. Oops, it's not open. First, that's very important to make sure it's open. So I'm going to add some liquid adhesive so that I can secure it into place. And I do this before I cut it because I can let it go a little bit further. Alright, so I'm just going to take my scissors and cut it. And there is my rolled flower. Just that quick and easy. Very simple to do. All I have to do is pretty much wait for that glue to set. Okay, this is the eyelet border, and you have the little center circle parts that can pop out, but since you're rolling it, there's no really need to actually have to pop them out. I found that I just went ahead and did it like that. If you want to make your flower like come out a little bit more, you can kind of flip the edges out as you go along and adhere along the way as well. Another thing you can do with these flowers is make this be the bud, the center of a flower. You can take about 3 heart die cuts. Let's say you want to just die cut 3 hearts from like some Simply Chartreuse felt, and then place this particular rolled flower right in the center. It will make a very beautiful flower. This is the heart border. All right, you can use it either side. I'm going to use the top of it to show you this way first. And then I pulled the scrap out so you can see it's pretty much give you the same shape on the bottom. You can use that. All right, just add some adhesive to the end and you're done. All right, to show you how to use a scrap, I call this a scrap because even though it creates a very nice border, it's not necessarily the border you were using to create it. I cut a little bit off the one end again because I don't want my flower to be too high of a flower. That embellishment may stick off way too far off of my project, so that's why I trim it down a bit. You can play with it and decide on the height that you want your flowers to be and pretty much customize it exactly to your liking. So just roll it around, add some adhesive, and if you find that you're having difficulty rolling it, simply just unroll it and then start over again. It's a very simple and easy way to create your own handmade embellishments. Okay, again, this is from the eyelet border, and you can use this one as well. It just creates little points and it looks like a different type of flower when you roll it. So using the border dies, you don't have to use the actual necessarily the design or intended border, but also the opposing border on the other side of your die cut and create even more felt flowers to get more bang for your buck out of that felt. So I think it's really cool that you can roll it in order to achieve these results. Okay, so here are the rolled flowers, and this concludes this portion of the tutorial. You can make them really, really quickly and have lots of them to pick up at your leisure at any time. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to how I design. Since I work full time, sometimes I sketch out different card designs, and right now I'm just marking PP1, PP2, PP3, and that indicates pattern paper 1, pattern paper 2, and pattern paper 3. So I will know that I need to add number 1, 2, or 3 here. This particular sketch, I'm going to put a focal point here, a sentiment somewhere in there, and the embellishments in the center. Sometimes I just add the numbers. It's like 1 here, 2 here, and that indicates the pattern paper or the cardstock colors. Here I'm just saying use dies to create the patchwork embellishment, numbering the colors. And this one I'm just numbering it as well, the banner, and then add the embellishments along the banner. And this particular design, just indicating different colors I want to use. And I think I'm going to use this particular sketch. And here are the trees that I have designed. I'm going to put the rosettes, the felt flowers right on top. And so I thought Trendy Treetops would be a great stamp set to use to demonstrate and to show off these felt flowers. And I'm just using my stamp set and then taking the embellishments and putting them right on top of the tree stamp so I can see exactly how it may look, and I can envision it and start seeing how that embellishment may come about. Now this is the Aqua Mist polka dot pattern paper, and it's cut to about 4 inches by 5 inches. And I'm just taking that tree stamp and I'm going to stamp it in some true black ink. And I think I'm going to position it here on the right side, pretty much adhering to my sketch. And my sketches are used just as a starting point, not necessarily something that I have to adhere to strictly. It's just something that gets me started so I know where to place things, and a lot of times I make a lot of different decisions along the way. So I'm using a Stamp-A-Majig, a positioner, stamp positioner, so I can get another inking here of that true black. It gives a great impression the first time, but since it's on this pattern paper, I want to make sure that it's really true black and you get that super black impression there, that inked impression. So that's why I inked it twice. And you have that option when stamping, and I love that about it. Okay, now what I want to do is take my glue and go ahead and adhere the felt flowers, the embellishments that I made earlier. And I'm just going to add some adhesive to the back of each one and adhere it one to each of these tree branches. There's 3 tree branches here. I think that's the perfect number to add these felt flowers because the position of the branches creates sort of a triangle, and so you have a top point, a left point, and a right point. So in my sketch, I had a design like this where it was just the felt flowers or the felt rosettes. And that would be cool, but I thought it just looked a little bit plain. So here is where I'm starting to improvise my design process for my original sketch. I'm taking some Simply Chartreuse felt, just a small strip of it, and I am folding it in half and hand cutting some leaves. And you can use dies if you like, but I'm just hand cutting it along the way because this is just how I operate when I make my cards. So it takes a little bit of time, and I'm just going to hand cut them out because I'm trying to build this tree with the felt leaves. I'm not sure if I'm just going to add a couple leaves sprouting out from the felt flowers or embellish it into a full tree yet. So I'm just positioning them without adhesive first so I can get an idea exactly where I want the leaves and how many I want to add, and to see how it's just going to kind of turn out. So I like how they're kind of looking when I layer them up, like double them up. So I'm continuing the process and adding so many more that is built into a full tree. And I really like the way it looks because again, it takes on that triangular shape and it adds fullness to the actual stamped image of that tree. So once I figure out exactly where I want everything positioned, I'm going to go ahead and start adhering these felt leaves down, one by one. And I layer them up, some overlapping, some may not, but most do because that gives that full appearance. All right, now that I have my embellishment done, I need something down here at the bottom. And according to my sketch, I had some decorative edge that looked like a rolled heel. I'm going to use this Edgers number 2 die, and I already have it cut here with some fine linen cardstock. And I'm just going to use this little file here to punch out the detailed die cuts here in this particular Edger die cut. Some of them stick in there, but they just simply pop out. And I chose this color because I thought it was a good neutral. Green would have represented grass, but I thought it was a little bit too bright and colorful and was a little bit overpowering along with those felt leaves. So that's why I chose the fine linen, and I didn't measure anything. These are all scraps, so I'm having to cut this down. And then I'm just going to add some adhesive and adhere it down here. And since my pattern paper was also a scrap, it's a little bit shorter than what I would like it. So I'm going to add this edger cardstock layer a little bit longer so that it would fit an A2 card and give me that nice border. So since this was a scrap, I have a little bit of an overhang, so I'm just going to take my scissors, flip it over, and cut the excess off the edges. And the reason why I flip it over is so I can see exactly where it meets that pattern paper. And then you want to turn it where your scissors abut the actual paper that you're cutting, because it gives you the closest cut and the cleanest cut. So I have a sentiment here, hello you, also from Trendy Treetops, and I'm just going to adhere it to my acrylic block. And what I do now is decide where I want to add the sentiment. So I said here, no, I think I like it about here. And when I put it here, my acrylic block is kind of interfering with those felt leaves. So I'm taking it off of my block and then reapplying it all the way to the right side. And that makes sure that I don't have any interference when I stamp. It may be a little bit off-centered now, but when I stamp, I'm going to get an even stamp versus maybe a lopsided one. So I always make sure that I do that before I stamp. I test it out where I'm going to stamp it before I ink it up. So I'm just going to stamp this, I think one time. Yeah, that works because I can see it just fine. And here I have some rustic white cardstock. This is an A2 cardstock. In another step up there, I took it over to my sewing machine and I stitched around the border. So that's something you can do, but you don't have to. I'm adding some adhesive to my card front here, and the reason why I'm adding it to the card front, not to the back of that finished one, is because I'm going to smush everything down. So I like doing it this way because I can just rub off any adhesive with my fingers. Usually with those tape runner adhesives, they just rub right off. Okay, to finish off the card, I'm going to add some ribbon at the bottom. The other colors that I was thinking about just didn't seem to work as well. I wanted to make sure I added a color that was already introduced into the color palette. So I was looking at black, fine linen, harvest gold, and pure poppy. Pure poppy was just a little bit too bright. True black was just a little bit black. And fine linen, of course, just became invisible up against that fine linen cardstock. So I ended up with the harvest gold. And I chose grosgrain because the space was wide and I felt like the weight could hold that width of the ribbon. So I'm just tying my bow here, and you notice I use a technique where I turn two loops together. So I had one small loop in my right hand, a larger loop in my left hand, and I flipped them around and tied them to make the knot. And now I'm just trimming the ends. And this pretty much concludes my card. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial on how to make felt flowers from border dies. Again, you can use a lot of different border dies. You don't have to just use the ones I used in this tutorial. Try them out and have a good time. Thanks so much for watching Make It Monday. You guys have a great day. Bye.